Hello. So this map that I'm making here is Opel Sellum. It is a city that my players adventured to. It's the one that they've been trying to actually go to for the entire campaign so far. Opel Sellum is I guess it's kind of an interesting town. It was sort of a mining town, but its main position is actually a fort. It is known as Corner Guard Keep, actually. And it was positioned here because it is next to two valleys that lead into the country of Noss Farii. So it is the guard for the northern border, and it is the guard for the eastern border. And so it has a very important location. It also houses a very interesting sort of magic enchanted items called far lookers, which are a set of telescopes, mounted massive telescopes that are magically created, and they allow people who look through them to see for many, many, many miles, like much further than a regular telescope. And so with these, they could guard almost the entire valleys. And so those are obviously a huge advantage, making this place very important. But that's not why my players are coming here. My players are coming here because they want to join the Magical Rebellion. Uh, Noss Farii, as you may know, if you've watched some of my other map videos, the magic is banned in this country, completely banned. It is a very religious issue, of course, and so they want to join the rebellion, which is trying to fight against that, overthrow the government, and all that great jazz. And so they're coming here to Opal Sellum because it's where one of the three Magic Rebellions is located. It's also where a couple important characters are located, including one of the player characters. Their character's wife is supposedly here, and that's who they've been really trying to track down, is Gertie's wife, Sariel. And so they have come here to finally find her, get her back, see what's going on, why she left Gertie in the middle of the night, and all of that. Let's talk about this map though. So, like usual, I begin with sort of a planning out stage, figuring out where I want things to go. Usually, I have a pretty good picture in my head already, because it's not just I'm drawing a drawing, but it's something that I already know about. I've already created lore for. I've already created the picture in my mind. So, it usually doesn't take too long for me to plan things out. I decided to do this one in the same style that I've done some of my other city maps, Lois Denvo specifically. I liked sort of the like rough, scratchy style of it. So a lot of the scratches you'll notice here are intentional. It's made to look messy. It's made to look almost hand drawn, but at the same time, there's obvious things about it that aren't as hand drawn. Like once I start adding color, you'll see it's very clearly not. Uh, Other than that, I'm not really doing anything too different from that map style. I did learn a couple things from doing that one, how to make the lines a little bit better, and I wanted to make sure I use good line weight. And so you can see I've made sort of a hierarchy of how thick the lines are and how thick those walls would be and how important they are, and it helps emphasize things. You can see I'm even looking back at the latest Denvo map to sort of keep in mind things I did there. But you'll notice like the biggest main fort walls are very thick dark lines, and then the outer city walls are a bit more thin, still dark but a bit more thin, and then there are even thinner lines like the paths and the building areas and things like that. And then, of course, I'm adding in some scenery, like some grass. Some of this is hand drawn, some of it is using these stencil brushes that I like to use. I'll make sure to put a link below for those. If you see my other videos, you know that there are a bunch of mountains and forests and things like that. I decided to hand draw my forest because I feel like I do trees pretty well. So I decided to do those hand drawn this time. And then I go through this process, which is drawing tents. So because there is a obviously being a fort, there is a military presence here. But they will be actually leaving very soon, and my players discovered that after one or two sessions in the city, the military presence left because there are a lot of other issues going on, and handling this rebellion isn't their job right now. That is the job for other groups. So that's sort of an encampment there. And you'll notice I drew a couple tents and I just copied and pasted. That was mainly a save myself some time. And then up here, the corner guard keep is built into the side of a mountain. Think very like Minas Tirith, except not as vertical and not as tall, at least the buildings, but the mountain is very tall. And that is where the far lookers are, is at this very top peak above the keep itself. And so it's a very important location, so they always have guards up there. They even have towers up there. And occasionally things will come through those tunnels. And so that's sort of that little tunnel and that little path that I drew there. Which was a potential thing that my players could have gotten more into, but they had other things on their mind, of course. Just adding some further details now, just adding in little hills, more grass, more scenery. I don't want to have too many areas that are too flat or too boring. And now I'm adding the inner walls of the noble area. Again, this was a fort, and so I imagine that with a fort there are walls within the walls. It's not just one big set of walls. They like to have more walls so that way if an issue were to happen, they could contain it. That way they could lock down certain gates, and it becomes harder for someone trying to break in because not now they don't just have to get past one set of walls, they have to get past multiple sets of walls. And now I begin coloring, and I wanted to go with sort of a watercolored, like stained parchment sort of look, not super saturated. I wanted to keep it very, very gray tone, very messy. I didn't want it to look as like just full on blocks of color. I wanted it to look much more hand done, I guess you could say. I was not very satisfied though with the mountain color, as you could see there, so I got rid of it. I added more color in, making it a little bit more dark, a little bit more gray, because before it was too blue for my liking. Now I'm erasing the coloring on the trees and the farm fields down there, just coloring them separately. And you'll notice I'm not really worrying too much about being 100% in the lines. I'm not worried about making sure every part of it is colored, because that's the style I'm going for. I'm intentionally leaving that out. And sometimes that's what you do. You don't need everything to be by the book. I also decided, as I like to do, to color in the districts. So right now I'm coloring in sort of the noble corner guard district and the corner guard keep itself, just a nice solid brown, just to like really solidify that that is a big, important building. You'll also notice I didn't draw separate buildings this time. I drew paths and like plazas, squares, sort of gathering areas. I didn't want to draw every single building. I did like it on the Lois Denvo map, but it also took forever. And I feel like it really wasn't worth it in the end. And based on how my players felt this time when we were playing, I would say it was about the same, because I could just mark spots on the map where I said, okay, here's where there's an important building. Here's where there's an important building. And that's all they needed. They didn't need to see house by house. Not to mention, this is a pretty big city, so it would be a lot of really small buildings. And I didn't want to zoom in and then zoom out. It just didn't seem like it was worth it. I feel like mainly seeing where the streets were was more important. So the final part is now that I've got my different like sectors or districts, I now just label everything. And usually I try to pick one or two fonts and stick with them. Sometimes different maps I'll do different fonts just for the different vibe that I'm going for. This one I went with a very like classic medieval looking font. I feel like it looks pretty good. I forget the name of it at the moment. Also, forgive the error there. I did rename the military encampment later, but right now it's going to be corner guard and it's going to stay that way. But I've got these other districts that you can see here. Each of them sort of has their own different flavor, but I'm almost out of time here on the video, so I won't have enough time for that. Anyway, if you like this video, as usual, give a like, give a subscribe. I know I don't make a ton of videos these days. I might make a couple here or there just when I'm feeling like it. But let me know if you like this kind of video in the comments, because then I know which kind of videos people like. Otherwise, I really have no idea. Okay, I do know my civilization videos usually aren't the top ones, but, you know, what can I do? Anyway, I don't think there's really much else I'm doing here, just sort of editing text. So, I don't know if there's really much else to say. Hopefully you like this. If this was like if you have any like criticism as well, if it was like too fast, too slow, let me know. I tried a different method for speeding it up, so I'm hoping that it goes over well and that it renders well within YouTube's thing. So hopefully that works out. Anyway, this is Alec on Drawing and Dragons. See you all later.